evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, April 21st. This is The Refinery, where grassroots organizations work to convert conservative messaging into conventional wisdom. From the Conservative Union, there's me, Leslie Price, and Ryan Bickmore. From Free Radical Network, we have J.D. Bryden and Felicia Cravens. Normally, we also have Corey and Andy Pate from the Party of Choice, but they are both out this week, so 1/3 of our brain trust is gone. And hopefully it won't be too noticeable, but I know we're going to miss having them here. Anyway, we are live every Tuesday at 8:45 Central on therefineryshow.com, where you can join us live and chat live with the hosts. We are real people, and we do like to talk to you. Also, if you don't see us or if you aren't listening to us live, you can go to therefineryshow.com anytime and get the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we also put out clips throughout the week on the YouTube channel of choice moments from this show. I'm feeling a little bit down today. There's been really a national tragedy as far as I'm concerned. These are dark times for America, and Felicia is in mourning as well. I'm certain that you've heard by now. Bluebell Creamery has issued a nationwide total recall on all of their products nationwide. They are pulled off the shelves effective immediately. I was in Kroger this afternoon, and that section of that part of the freezer section was completely empty. And while I'm standing there devastated, looking at these empty shelves, an entire group of young people came into the store, and they came right to the freezer section, and they stood there looking, and they said, "I had heard, oh my God, it's all gone. What do we do?" And truly, we are a nation adrift without ice cream at the beginning of summer.
It's the most unimaginable and far-reaching tragedy I can remember in a long time.
Truly, and this isn't hyperbole. Without ice cream, what are we to do? What are we to do? And
I don't have words.
I wanted ice cream. There was no Bluebell to buy, and I did buy some Kroger brand ice cream, and it was huckleberry pie flavor, because I figure if anybody can be my huckleberry, Kroger ice cream might be able to be my huckleberry.
Oh my gosh. You traitor.
Yeah. Yes, we are. We don't know how to spell in memoriam, but we are mourning the loss of Bluebell. It's an A rather than a U, but that's all right. Not going to laugh at anybody's spelling, but I'm hoping that Bluebell will come back soon. It's not completely dead. It's only mostly dead, and we all know that mostly dead is not at all dead. Look, it's going to be fixed. But yeah, the listeria problem that they thought was isolated to just one place. They found the listeria in a gallon of chocolate chip cookies and cream from their Brenham facility. So at that point, they said, you know what? It's just time to pull it all. And they are offering rebates to anybody refunds to people who have Bluebell at home, and they're going to super investigate and scan everything and change their procedures and figure out where it came from. I mean, the whole thing is just really genuinely kind of mysterious. I mean, for this listeria bacteria to have been in multiple facilities over a lengthy period of time, it's got to be something kind of upstream in their production cycle. You know, it can't be cleanliness issues. It's like something got contaminated, and and they'll figure it out, and Bluebell will be sold again. And truly, when it comes back, I will be in line to buy it.
It strikes me, though, that just a few weeks ago we were talking about cookie dough and the government trying to force people not to eat raw cookie dough.
Oh, you're right.
And that's the flavor.
You're right.
I'm not saying there's a conspiracy.
But you're not
But
not saying it.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right, so
Hmm.
we fixed the graphic there. It
Yeah,
was a
we did.
last minute.
You'll fix it in post. You'll fix it in post.
Fix it in post. Also, as a East Coaster, we have Briars.
In
And
Texas, when they take Bluebell off the shelves, that's taking ice cream off the shelves. Bluebell
okay.
is ice cream to us. The only reason I noticed that there was a different brand of ice cream is because there was no Bluebell to look at, because that's all I see.
Because of the big gaping
There's
hole
a
in the
big
freezer
gaping
section.
hole. And I kind of looked at either side of the freezer section and found, oh, that's not just frozen dinners. It's actually other brands of ice cream. Well, that's interesting. And I wasn't going to buy Ben & Jerry's communist ice cream. I was going to buy Kroger brand because Kroger, of all of the other brands that were there was Ben & Jerry's the communist and a bunch of other brands I've never heard of. And there was Kroger brand. And I know that Kroger has fought against the Moms Demand Action anti-gun bullies. So Kroger deserves, if I can't give my money to Bluebell, I will give my money to Kroger.
What you
Fine.
can't see right now is just my hands on my face and my hands. This is just this is.
So this is a face palm moment for you?
It is in fact a double face palm. One palm was not enough. We're going with two face palms, and I'm stop screen sharing this now because we no longer need this graphic. I'm sure.
So are you saying that a double face palm actually isn't two faces in one palm? It's two palms to one face? Huh.
That
Never
is
knew
in
that.
fact the correct ratio for yes. That's how it works. It's
Oh my gosh, I've learned.
it's yeah.
So why isn't it double palm face? Because it's double palms to the face.
I don't
The
know.
face
That's when I don't
modifies.
have ice cream. When
Okay.
I'm so traumatized by.
We're going
Grammatically,
from ice
it
cream
is
to
correct.
grammar. It is correct.
It is correct to say a double face palm because your palm is the focus here.
Being grammatically correct is only second to being technically correct. So those two are the two best kinds of being correct. I will take it.
Okay, so you were grammatically correct about the double face palm, though you were spelling incorrect with in memoriam.
Oh,
So-
and Leslie
so
just
that
missed
brings-
an adverb. No. See, you can't do that if you don't say incorrectly.
He was grammatically correct and spelling incorrect.
Can we
Incorrect.
modify this show? Let's modify the show. Let's see if we can do that.
You're going to take all of this out, aren't you? Yeah.
Every single bit of it. It's all going.
It's gone. When we upload the podcast, it's going to be a 30-minute podcast. I mean, what the heck happened? All it's going to be is JD going, double face palm. Oh, my God. It's better than a double rainbow. Anyway, but on to actual conservative messaging topics. We had kind of a follow-up to a topic that we talked about last week, which was effective abortion messaging from our presidential candidates. And as you recall, last week we talked about how Rand Paul was very effective when he was given the abortion gotcha question by a reporter. He tossed it back at the Democrats and got them to kind of out themselves with their radical pro-abortion stance. And that was a great tactic for us in learning that you question the premise of the questioner, and you kind of reject the premise and you turn it back on them. And then this week, just recently, Carly Fiorina was speaking at the Susan B. Anthony List convention, and she had a really, in her little opening speech, she talked about effective communication, effective persuasion of the pro-life abortion stance, and she brought it down to something that's really quite useful for us, not the presidential candidates making a speech and responding to reporters, but she put out some information that really is good for all of us and that we can use. We'll have the link to the video in the chat, but at about halfway through the video, she starts talking about how you can have the conversation, one-on-one conversation with people about pro-choice issues. And her closing sentence really is, a woman facing a difficult choice always deserves our empathy and our support, never our judgment or our condemnation. But if we can engage in a reasonable conversation with people, we can change people's minds. And I thought that was, again, I am so impressed with our slate of presidential candidates, because this woman just spoke sincerely from the heart, calmly, not wild-eyed, radical. It's the kind of conversation that we can have that really will persuade people, because it really isn't enough just to express our thoughts. Our goal must be to persuade others and to convince others and to change people's minds. And in order to do that, you need to get them to sort of step away from what they're thinking and give them some pointers. Teach them what the left really believes, because most people hear the slogans of the left. The left is very good at sloganeering pro-choice, and I think it should be between a woman and her doctor. I mean, these are phrases that are very easy for a person to latch onto and agree with. I mean, I'm pro-choice, not in terms of killing babies, but I am in favor of choice, and I am also in favor of getting the government out of things, and I am in favor of decisions being between a woman and her doctor. So yeah, those are all inoffensive mottos that are used to justify the pro-abortion stance. But Carly, I'm trying to find a few more of the little quotes from there. Carly makes the point to help people understand. Do you know that the Democrat position is about any abortion, any time, at any point in a woman's pregnancy? Are you aware of that? Are you aware that they want all of those to be paid for by taxpayers? I mean, do you agree with that? And she outlines these things, and she presents the Democrat case as being extremely radical, and then she just says, do you agree with that? Giving the person a moment to pause and wonder, that's really kind of crazy. Do I agree with that? And before the person can say, oh, possibly, yeah, I do agree with that, she interrupts with, no, of course you don't. And that's kind of filling in the blank and being persuasive, leading them to know that no rational person would agree with this Democrat position, because it is so radical and crazy. And so you, the person that I'm talking to, who once thought yourself pro-choice, once I explained to you what the Democrat position really is, you can't agree with that, because their real position is so very radical. It's very persuasive. The couple of minutes that she took to, role play a conversation. It's great listening, and I posted it at the Conservative Union, and it's on YouTube. Daily Signal, it has an article about it and the link to the video. It really is awesome. Did anybody else have other thoughts on that? And JD is muted. I don't hear JD.
Darn it! I'm sorry about that. That was my fault. I had my mic muted and my mic muted, so I could mute my mic while I was muting my mic. Anyway, what I was trying to say, yeah, stubble mute palm. What I was trying to say was that who would have thought, coming out of an election cycle like 2012, where we had Todd Aiken and Richard Murdoch, that we would turn weakness to strength the way that we have. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that abortion is a really strong topic for us going into the 2016 election. And if we actually make Hillary Clinton, or whoever the Democrat candidate is going to be, it's going to be Hillary Clinton. If we actually make Hillary Clinton stand up for the Democrat position, what's in the actual Democrat platform about late-term abortions, taking rare out of the platform for safe, legal, rare. They took the rare part out in 2012. If we actually make them, talk about the stuff that they actually are proposing, especially on an issue like this where it's visceral. If you're talking about this stuff, it is really really difficult to envision a 7-pound baby getting killed like that and have anything other than revulsion. I mean, if we can actually do this as a team, that's incredible to me.
I think that the strongest point that Leslie was making too was that it's a teachable moment, and that when our candidates are saying things properly and articulating really well, not only should we praise them for that, we should learn from that, we should take those notes, we should begin to incorporate that language. It doesn't matter if you support Carly Fiorina or some other candidate, you can use this. And just like Rand was talking last week about, did you ask Debbie Wasserman Schultz this kind of question? Those tactics, regardless of who you support, we can pick up, and we need to pick up. We need to memorize things like her statement. The policy has been succinctly summarized by Democrats, such as Barbara Boxer, as it isn't a life until it leaves the hospital. And then she says, as Leslie was saying, do you agree with that? Nobody agrees with that. And so using that opportunity to pick up a new angle there, I think conservatives across the board can learn to speak better about it and take what we like and what it works from each candidate.
That's really true. And the way that Carly spoke about it in the video, you really have to watch it to see she's calm and compassionate and caring. That's the kind of person you can have a one-on-one discussion with, and that kind of discussion is the kind of discussion that can persuade and change people's minds. And the tactic, the conversational tricks and tactics that she used right there of asking, did you know that you have to go through a lot more rules and regulations to open a tattoo parlor than to open an abortion clinic? Do you agree with that? Do you agree with the fact that a 13-year-old needs to have parental permission to pierce her ears but doesn't have to have parental permission to get an abortion? Do you agree with that? And then she tosses out, and she basically replaces the leftist slogan of pro-choice and between a woman and a doctor. She very much states the what Barbara Boxer had said with the it's not a life until it leaves a hospital. She put that in there as the tactic was to take the leftist slogan that's effective, which is the pro-choice stuff, and replace it with a bad slogan of it's not a life until it leaves the hospital. And that's really that's a subtle conversational trick that she did, and you have to really be listening carefully to see how she did it and to learn from it and try to use that kind of thinking yourself. But she took a successful slogan that the left uses, softened up her conversation partner with some questions, and then she threw out the replacement slogan for the left, it's not a life until it leaves the hospital, so that possibly this person that she's having a conversation with, when they go away, their memory of what the leftist position on abortion is has been replaced with the phrase, it's not a life till it leaves the hospital. And that's what they're going to remember when they think about Democrats and abortion. It's not alive till it leaves the hospital. And that was a really powerful technique of how to replace an effective slogan with a bad one, which I thought was really great.
And live by the soundbite, die by the soundbite.
Right.
So her succinct encapsulation of their position using one of the quotes from their own people, it's just doubly delicious.
And then to close it with, do you agree with this? Of course you don't. Nobody does. That pulls the person over to your side. All just by soft language, you have asked them, and then you're realizing that they would agree with you. You're kind of forcing the issue because you're saying nobody would agree with that. And because people are joiners and we all want to be accepted by the powerful leader that we're talking to, or be accepted by the person we're talking to so they don't kill us. I mean, it's just part of a social animal thing. Nobody would agree with that. You and I have been bonding here over the last 2 minutes of this conversation. Do you agree with that? No, nobody does. Of course you don't. You're smart. You don't agree with the Democrats anymore. If you do it right, you've just converted somebody. But those are style and those are conversational tactics that she's clearly brilliant with.
Well, and look at the reverse, what the left is doing with pro-choice and between a woman and her doctor. They're misstating the position. So
Correct.
Carly has actually reframed it accurately and said exactly what they stand for, instead of letting them hide behind these other words. So it's not twisting their words. It's putting their own words back in there and making it absolutely true, saying exactly what it is.
Right.
But, as you said, in a calm way. It's not a twisting. I like that it is called a tactic and a trick, but I want to be very clear that the trick is telling the truth in a brief, succinct, and powerful way.
Exactly. That's what's so brilliant about it. And that's what we tend to forget about the conservative messaging in all topics is the way that we win and the way that we convince is by stripping away the deceptive messaging of the left and replacing it with true, honest facts.
And tone does matter. You're so right about picking up on the tone there, because so many times the left paints people who are against abortion as just loud and obnoxious and crude and people who use horrible images or try scare tactics, or they're about control. But
and shaming poor women in need and all of these kinds of things. Yeah.
This turns that all on its head.
I thought it was really a fabulous example of really great conservative messaging, and I was so delighted to see it out there, and it's on video and we can see it, and it's a 9-minute video, but seriously, the meat, it starts at 4 minutes in. Starts at 4:20, oddly enough.
You know what? Maybe we ought to make a tradition of having the applause button for every time a candidate does something really stellar and good that we can all use. Maybe
Okay.
that sounds effective.
Carly Fiorina.
There, I feel better now.
Wait, so wait a second. Does that mean that we owe one for Rand? Does that mean that Rand is owed one? I mean
Rand Paul.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad that everything's fair now.
Okay, now was that echoey on y'all, or was it just me?
It sounded echoey to me, yes, but
Okay,
it's not echoey anymore.
Because I was doing this is technical, because I was doing the sounds on the other computer that doesn't have a microphone. I had to unmute it to get the sounds on, so I really need to remember to do the sounds on this computer rather than the other one. Okay, now I know.
Awesome. The other thing that I think is really important here, and what Fishy mentioned earlier, and that we really need to, I think, drive home, is the fact that we need our candidates to learn from each other, and remember that when there's something that's successful that we use, we need to take note and make sure that's spread among everyone. And it's not just for our presidential candidates. We need to pay attention to what is working and make sure that it is put into the toolbox for the rest of our crew, from the top to the bottom, because these are strategies that work, and it's stuff that we need to be very mindful of.
And it takes a little bit more effort than just, oh, there's a cool video you should watch.
Yes, it does. It does take
when you share it, it takes, spend the 90 seconds that it takes to write out, these are the things to listen for, this is why this works. It really doesn't take that much time.
Yes, and then you're going to get the guy who says, this is about abortion, this election is going to be only about economic issues, so why are you posting this junk?
Well, true. We need to stay away from social issues.
Yes, social issues are terrible, even though we're winning on them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well.
Speaking of winning, hashtag winning, Fishy.
Okay, so I've watched The Apprentice for a couple of seasons. I've enjoyed the show. I've, kind of put up with Donald Trump for that, and every election cycle now he inserts himself in some way, and I just kind of roll my eyes and go with it. But oh no, oh no, he stepped in it big time this time. And I hope this is a great contrast to what Carly Fiorina was doing. Um, Donald Trump was so upset with something someone said about him, and it was a reporter who'd been on a panel on a show and said that he was a clown. He was so upset he took to Twitter and just started pounding this guy. And it got even worse when he starts taking on Jonah Goldberg, who hadn't spoken about him in a long time and who hadn't mentioned him in a column for, something like 4 months or something. But all of Twitter got caught up in this, conservative Twitter. And it's beautiful because the sort of things that Trump was saying are exactly the opposite of what you want a candidate to look like. But it's so exactly what he is and why people don't take him seriously and why he's called a clown. He was challenging Jonah Goldberg over his work at NRO. Here's Jonah's quote of the piece that he had written about him. In response, the famously tough businessman who boasts he can take on Putin, the Chinese Politburo, and the mullahs got very upset. And as any first-rate presidential aspirant would, started tweeting relentlessly like a 14-year-old girl about it. I love it.
And that's classic Jonah humor. And it really does kind of fit my impression of Donald Trump too. And I don't watch any of Donald Trump's shows, so I only know what I've seen or heard from him on bits and pieces. And yeah, is he really gonna run? Do you think?
I think, for the entertainment value, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
other than that, shut up. Go back to playing on
No,
the television.
he's really so thin-skinned
Yeah.
that somebody calls him a clown that he went and attacked Jonah. But didn't he? I didn't pay too much attention to the story, but didn't he confuse Jonah and
Yes.
Stephen Hayes,
Yes, he
who are
did
both
apparently.
on Brett Bayer's show, but they are not the same person?
After Jonah said that about him tweeting like a 14-year-old girl, Trump says, "You stated that I started relentlessly tweeting like a 14-year-old girl. Horrible insult to women. Resign now or later. People have been forced to resign positions for far less." And he goes on and on and on about it. It's just so hilarious that people are like Team Jonah, all over the place. This is the guy who thinks he's qualified to run for president.
Well, that's just the calm, measured temperament that I'm looking for in the leader of the free world. Can you see him arguing with the mullahs of Iran?
So greatest blunders: never start a land war in Asia, never go up against a Sicilian when death is on the line, and don't mess with Jonah Goldberg on Twitter. It's not going to end well.
No.
True.
Here's Stephen Miller, Red Steve's. Donald Trump, you make Meghan McCain look like Ronald Reagan. I love it. It's just awesome. Here's Eric Brockaway. Paging Ivanka Trump. Please take the Twitter from Dad today.
Yeah. There was Donald Trump said something really offensive like a week ago. I don't even remember what it was, but that was when it was tweeted out and then it was deleted, and Trump kind of denied it, by saying that he's got a staff of 10 that does all of his social media. So he sort of tried to absolve himself of responsibility for something that was, oh, he said something about Hillary can't even please her own husband, and how is she going to make a good president or something? I mean, the comment was about Hillary being unable to please Bill, and that would mean that she would be a bad president. And then Donald absolved himself of responsibility for that by pawning it off on his social media staff. Do you think he's going to pawn this thing off on his social media staff? Do you think he's going to deny his own involvement in it?
No. I think he wants to own this. He started a war. He wants to keep it going.
Is he so clueless that he doesn't know he lost immediately?
It's not about losing. It's not about winning. It's about he's a media circus. And please, I won't open the can of worms with what happened in Philadelphia and football teams and quarterbacks. But suffice it to say,
and not meaning to insult circuses, because they are an honorable form of it.
Absolutely. I don't mean to insult anybody. But suffice it to say, Donald Trump is in this to create hype. I'm sure he's got something going on soon that's going to. He's not actually running for president. He's just running because he's bored and wants to generate more hype. It's a cultural thing. It's not a political thing. He's just riding the wave to increase his stature.
I gotta say that people who make their money in business, I have a little bit more respect for them than people who make their money in celebrity, like acting or whatever. Although I am, from the theater background, I do have a lot of respect for actors, not celebrities, and people who have gained this audience based on celebrity instead of just, hard work or whatever. That said, can we dispense with the idea that just because a person is a reasonable deal maker in business, that they have any knowledge about anything else politically? I think I'd like to think about that. I think there's a far broader bit of qualifications one needs than being able to go bankrupt several times and come back from it.
Well, he's obviously very good at some stuff. He's very good at making money for himself through multiple different venues, businesses, and now it's via celebrity culture. So he's pretty good at figuring out how to make money for himself. He's pretty good at promoting himself, but that doesn't translate into other stuff. Just like being a popular movie star doesn't mean that you are good at knowing anything about politics. It means you're good at acting, or you're good at choosing popular movies to act in, or whatever it is.
Right. I don't think anybody on the right gives Trump much weight, but the media sure loves to throw him out there, don't they?
Sure, because that's clicks and eyeballs and advertising dollars. And
can you believe what Donald Trump just said on Twitter? It's like it is Donald Trump is the best thing ever for lazy journalists. He's like, content, just oodles of content that you don't need to do anything. You just sit back, take a tweet, put it there. Don't need to write anything. It's done. It writes itself, and you put in a video of him doing this to people, and it's done. You're good.
Can we lay the blame for him at the feet of the media, as well as himself?
Yes. I blame the media. I love to blame the media. I'm happy to blame the media for anything. I blame the media for Bluebell.
I don't think that's how that works.
That's how I heard about it.
Yeah, I don't think that it's the media's fault that there was listeria somewhere in the process for.
But the listeria hysteria is the media.
I don't know when
hysteria.
when I woke up this morning, I didn't realize that this was going to be the refinery show that we were going to do tonight. But hey, I mean, it works. Ay,
Sure.
ay, ay. Listeria, hysteria, Bluebell, and Donald Trump. It is a
Have
match
some
made in heaven.
respect. Have some respect.
Really, we're still in mourning for our lost ice cream
He's
here.
so insensitive.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I should have put a trigger warning out there.
Yeah. But okay, let's move past Donald Trump.
Yes, please. Let's move past Donald Trump to something that's even better, and it's the whole. This is a topic that we've talked about here on the Refinery before, and I shout out to Nerds Radio, who is on Vigilant Liberty Radio along with us. We're podcast mates or something. We're both on.
Let's make ourselves sound more important. Vigilant Liberty Radio is one of our distribution channels.
And along with us on Vigilant Liberty Radio, who puts out our show.
Yes, on the Vigilant Liberty Radio network with us.
Yes. So we don't have any golden mics though. We're working on that. No, we've got styrofoam. We've got styrofoam covered mic. There we go. So yeah, see, it's.
But you have an actual real broadcaster mic. I mean, I have.
Yeah. So.
I have the customer service rep headset mic. You know? Anyway,
now that we totally broke immersion there and everybody gets to see behind the curtains. Jazz Shaw, who along with Doug Mataconis is are the hosts of Nerds. Jazz Shaw put an article out on Hot Air, and it was something that it was actually shared to us by Prairie Dog SD. That's Larry from Free Radical Network, who this article, and I'm putting the link in the chat. The article questions the idea of culture being upstream of politics. The whole idea, we've talked about that a billion times. Who hasn't talked about that? Andrew Breitbart quote: "Politics is downstream from culture. Culture is upstream of politics." And the whole debate over, conservatives, why are we so bad with the culture, and how is this something that perpetually is a problem? Why haven't any conservatives jumped into culture? He says, is politics truly downstream from pop culture? I've never really had any difficulty separating entertainment from real-world policy discussions, nor do I find myself getting offended if the story being told has a progressive theme, as long as it's well made. When I put down the book, turn off the television, or walk out of the theater, I leave that behind. But perhaps that's not the same experience for everyone. He then finishes the piece by asking, why aren't there more huge conservative endeavors in pop culture, and how did the market slip so thoroughly into the other column? I know, Leslie, you have some opinions on this, but I think that we've already answered a bunch of these questions before with previous episodes of The Refinery, but I think that really the big problem here is that we just fail to acknowledge the majority of conservative content that's out there that is in the culture that's good.
Right, and I think what Jazz is doing is he's asking a valid question, but it is confused to me with the way I think about culture and politics, and which is upstream and downstream from another, because I think of human beings come together in a society, and then our society creates the opinions of our society form what we call the culture, and entertainment culture is created by society, and so the way the society is reflected in our culture, and then who we elect as politicians is as a result of that. It all flows downhill, in that if we have a liberal society, then our entertainment choices are going to be liberal, and our culture, which people are calling our entertainment stuff, they call it culture. Our entertainment stuff is going to be liberal, and the thinking is that then becomes the group think, and when we go to choose the people to run our education and the people to run our laws and to run our companies and to run our government, those are then us, and we are liberal culture, we are politics. It all flows together, and it's all just different subsets. In my mind, there's kind of a Venn diagram going on here, and politics is sort of a part of the culture because they are representatives of culture, people outside of us who have an effect on our lives, and they are who we are. And you can see that naturally the politicians are going to be a reflection of us, just as our entertainment is going to be a reflection of us. But what has happened is that the progressives have sort of taken over the entertainment side of things, and they're pushing their progressive agenda, and they're sort of trying to force the thinking backwards into society in general, and upstream to society in general, and downstream to elected politics. The fact that in today's entertainment world, those people and those opinions can be so easily disseminated to millions of people, because it didn't used to be when you had an actor on a stage in New York and only the people in New York ever saw it, and nobody who had made the 6-month-long trek to California had any idea who was acting on a stage in New York. They didn't have the power really to transform society and politics via entertainment. But now we have entertainers who are interviewed for their opinions on things beyond the show that they just acted in. And so they are trying to normalize or make it seem that their opinions and views are society. We have this really twisted image because what we hear is the opinions of our entertainers, more so than we hear the opinions of our friends and neighbors across the country. The only representation or knowledge that we have of the way people think in the whole country is via our national entertainment culture, our books, movies, magazines, music. All of that is how we know what the whole country thinks. So when you ask people, what do you think the country believes about such and such an issue? They believe that the country believes exactly what Hollywood media thinks, not what they think. And it's a shifting kind of a delusion that regular people believe that our entire society believes exactly what Hollywood believes, because Hollywood's opinions and views are echoed across the whole country. And that's what we then think everybody believes. And that then flows into what our political views are, I think.
I mean, I guess you could say that. I'm not really sure that I agree. And here's why. I think that when we're talking about these vast cultural industries like television, video, and movies and YouTube now, and books, all of that stuff, and there have been some serious revolts in a lot of these areas, like video games. We've got Gamergate, and sci-fi literature. We've got the puppies movement. But going into these broader cultural things, when you look at the movies that make the most money and the kind of movies that are most popular, by and large, they're movies with conservative themes. There are lots of really good shows on TV. I mean, and this is where we've talked about this before. There are shows on TV that are really, really great conservative TV shows. Some of them are reality TV shows like Bar Rescue and Restaurant Impossible, stuff like that. Some of them are, cop dramas. Talk about Blue Bloods. I mean, Fishy and I talked for an hour the other day about Blue Bloods. There are even things like Backstrom. I think has some very interesting stuff going on culturally there. That's certainly not the norm when it comes to the liberal perspective, and has it actually bites a little bit at the way that the left has portrayed itself in culture. So there are a lot of shows out there. There are a lot of movies out there. There's a lot of content out there that we do a miserable job of claiming as conservative. And I think that is a problem for us. That's sort of puts us into this mindset that there is no conservative content out there. It's we are constantly so guarded. We see the examples of the left in culture that we don't point out the examples of the right. We're so blinded by the stuff we don't like that we don't really take the proper amount of time to give enough recognition to the stuff that we do, and that really, I think, that hurts our psyche as a movement. It makes us, think that we are losing when we really. I think that the lines between the left and the right in culture are closer than people might be aware of or might think. It's just that we do a really poor job of pointing out when we are winning.
Well, and this is why I've wanted to, see pieces on FRN for ages about taking conservative content out of pop culture and highlighting it so people can take that to the water cooler. And when they're talking about something they watched that might not be a wholly conservative show, they can take out the conservative elements and look at it that way. And that allows them to not feel so guilty about liking pop cultural stuff that may not have the values that they share. But when you talk about themes, Hollywood still has to make things that people will watch and that will resonate with them. I say it over and over. They don't celebrate the way that they do good values. They don't celebrate the bad things that people do. Bad guys get their comeuppance eventually. Nobody ever gets away with everything. And if there is a villain or a bad guy, quote unquote, there's usually some redeeming value or some quality that he has that you can latch on to. But again, showing people where it is and saying, did you notice that this is a conservative theme in this widely liberal show populated by liberals? It needs to be done, and nobody's doing it in right.
I think that's right. It's a naming and claiming kind of thing, because the entertainment content stories are conservative, but our entertainers are wildly and loudly liberal. And they when they talk about politics, their politics are Democrat, and people who like their content like the content, and so they think, oh, that must be Democrat. And JD was talking about this earlier. People like the particular ideas promoted by a particular show, and so they think they like that actor, and that actor says they're a Democrat, so those people then think that they are Democrats. But if you ask them about the particular ideas that they like, they will say, I like this idea, it must be a Democrat idea, when it's actually a Republican idea. But it's because they are told that they like Democrats. And that's where we have, in culture, we have conservative stories done by progressive people who are out and proud progressives, and the population says, I like this stuff that's in culture, and the only thing I ever hear it called is progressive, so that means I must agree with them, and they say that I should vote, so I'm going to go vote, and I'm going to vote progressive. And that's how politics is downstream from culture, and it ends up completely backwards.
But I'll tell you, the most delicious thing was that concept Andy introduced months ago. Hollywood works for us. We're paying them. We're supporting whatever content that, enriches them. And the funniest thing about it to me is I imagine that every time a liberal actor makes a content that has conservative themes, how they must have to grit their teeth. And I chew on that, and I enjoy that.
Absolutely, and we need to do more of the naming and claiming and say, you know what, this liberal actor is a scumbag liberal and his politics are completely wrong, but this story is a beautiful story of conservative themes, and isn't this wonderful? And steal it back.
You know what this is? And it took me until now to figure it out. Do you understand that what the left is doing is cultural misappropriation?
Oh my gosh, that's like bad, isn't it?
Oh, there's a piece. I can see that one's going up on your FRN list, to-do list.
Cultural misappropriation.
Can I just say that someone walks away with homework every week from this show, and it isn't me?
And I'm sorry, I need to say that
I get
cultural
assigned
misappropriation.
homework, I just don't do it.
It's not actually cultural misappropriation. It's cultural appropriation. I'm sorry, I screwed that up. It's cultural appropriation. What the left is doing by putting out content that's conservative, even though they are liberal, it is in fact cultural appropriation. That's I
That's rich.
I'm that piece is already being written. It was sort of slowly getting put together, but now there's a better reason and a good title. So we actually have some place to go with that. And I do hope that that Jazz gets a chance to watch this the clip that gets made eventually, and that I want to have this discussion. I want to have a more broad discussion about culture. We've talked about it before with the Ronnies and all that stuff that happened, and how we look into the past. We look far, far, far back into the past, but we don't really do such a good job of pointing out our culture as it's happening right now. And I think that's our biggest problem with the culture. It's not that there is no conservatism in the culture. It's just that we don't
Are
point it
afraid
out.
to claim it. We don't claim it. Yeah, I think that's true.
All right, I think we're ready for Ace. It's that time in the show again. It's like every week there's an Ace of Spades article every week because it's I think it's your fault, Leslie. I think it's
Because I have such a crush on him.
you have a crush. It's
I do. I have a horrible
Fangirl.
crush on Ace. I have no idea what he looks like. He said once he looks like an Ewok, and I'm not all that sure that that's really an attractive descriptor, but it's his brain, man. It's his brain. The guy writes so beautifully, and I don't have this article queued up. Somebody else start talking about it. Go. Where is it? I've lost my track.
We have it linked in the chat if you just.
I don't know. Okay, wait. It's an article about Democrat scandals versus conservative scandals, and he talks about labeling, and Ace does what he always does best, and he takes the general understanding the media is leftist, but he takes us deeper into that and helps us really pick it apart and understand this particular tactic that they use is a way of, and it helps you to read more good, because when you're reading and you're aware of these tactics, you see them all the time and you see them everywhere, and you learn to identify when you're being manipulated and how the manipulation is happening. And it's important for us to know this so that we can fight against it, so that we can help others to identify it as well, and so that we can, I don't know, maybe use some of those tactics ourselves. And he talks specifically about Democrat scandals can never be reported straight, but must always be controversialized, by noting that the GOP is seizing on reports of the scandal. And he talks specifically about the VA scandal and how I think most of us remember all the stories of the VA scandal and how any rational human being would have been shocked and appalled about what was really happening at the VA. And any rational human being would want to fix it and punish the people who had made it happen, get them fired, get the policies changed, and make it turn around. But the left absolutely didn't want to acknowledge that their man Obama had any association with anything that had gone wrong. And they also saw that acknowledgement that the VA was a disaster could threaten the concept of big government takes care of everybody beautifully and is the solution. And also they're aware that to many people the VA is the example of what government provided health care would be. If America ever had an NHS, it would be the VA for everybody because that's government provided health care. So on the progressive left, the VA scandal could never be allowed to be a scandal that really got fixed. It had to be controversialized. And that means that every time you hear about the VA scandal, you hear about the GOP attacking or the GOP. It's always referred to as a GOP-led scandal, and that Republicans are continuing to bring it up. And they're the ones who make sure that it is seen as a left versus right thing rather than a right versus wrong thing.
And this is the quote that I thought was really great. This, then, is what I think Cheryl Atkinson meant by controversializing an issue. Partisan, I can't say that word, izing it, is making it seem as if there is a progressive side and a conservative side. And the conservatives are, of course, liars. And even if they're not, it's all just a big, silly political food fight anyway. And only an extreme partisan would take sides in a big, silly political food fight. Therefore, anyone reporting on the VA scandal must himself be an extreme partisan. After all, if it's just a big political food fight, who else but partisans would weigh in? Thus does the media turn all stories about Democrat malfeasance into mere political name-calling squabbles.
And that's exactly true. We see it in our social media streams. The Democrat media tactic of partisanizing everything has been so completely effective. You can't mention Benghazi without somebody saying old story, silly partisan squabble, and that's so shocking to us because to us these are human beings. This is real. And the people on the left genuinely believe that it is simply a partisan food fight, and they want to be above partisanship. And so they think that these are not issues that are worth discussing. And it's genuine, and it's not that the people on social media who dismiss all mentions of Benghazi and VA, it's not that they're evil, and it's not that they don't care about the 4 people that died. It's that they genuinely believe that these are silly partisan squabbles and that the GOP won't let anything go. They really sincerely believe it, and I don't know. Yeah, it's great. Thank you very much, Ace, for helping me see this and helping me learn. Now, what do we do about it?
Okay,
Anyone?
well, I wanted to point out real quick that this is not just in politics with these scandals, it's in your news media too. Anytime you hear about a mass shooting, if they come out and say it's a Tea Party member, be kind of skeptical, as we saw with the Boston bombing and as we saw with the Colorado movie theater shooting. They came out and said it's a Tea Party member for a couple of days, we know who it is, and then it came out that it was a lie. If they come out and don't say anything, if you hear on the news there was a mass shooting today, 100% guarantee it's a crazy leftist. Because if there's not 100% proof of that, they will claim it's a Tea Party person to try to slander. And they do that. It's the same thing we're talking about with the scandals. They make it so that it looks like the left is okay, there's nothing to see here. If you hear about corruption in politics, it's Republican governor said this. Democrat governor, they can do whatever they want. It's just going to be governor indicted on false charges. Like, they twist everything. You've got to be aware of what you're hearing, what's going on. Think about it before you overreact. Don't rush to judgment within the first day of something bad happening. Let more facts come out. Study it a little more. And point this out to your friends too, because a lot of people get caught up in it. You think, oh, the Republicans are doing so many bad things. All these right-wing crazy people are killing people. Can you name one instance? I can probably name 8 to 10 in the last couple of years, crazy leftists killing people off the top of my head. But everyone thinks it's the crazy right people because that's what the news reports put out.
Well, and as to what we do about it, the kind of the environment that we're looking at is a lot of this media reporting that just comes out, and anytime there's a Democrat involved in a scandal, they've downplayed that. So they're continuing to build that idea that Democrat scandals are Republican feud. And I don't know in a broad way how you get around that. And I think we need to ask ourselves, in part, are we content to win on issues other than important things like a lot of the Obama scandals? Not to say that those things aren't important, but that until we can figure out a way to make people care about things they've been conditioned not to care about, can we focus on some other things in addition to that and live with it if there is nobody that in this administration pays for Benghazi? I think that's a tough question.
There may be a seed to a solution here. In fact, in the way Ace is talking about Hillary and the Clinton Foundation story. And, no, it's a story about Democrat malfeasance, and thus must be transformed from a story that should bother any patriotic citizen into a mere political squabble. No, the squabble must be between Hillary and GOP critics who seize upon reports of malfeasance as if the GOP alone stands against the bribery of high political officials. And that right there, that phrase right there, might be a seed of an answer. So it's only the GOP that cares about the bribery of officials? And maybe that's the question we ask back to those who are dismissing our claims. So it's only the GOP that cares about an ambassador being murdered? So it's only the GOP that cares about individuals being targeted for their politics by the IRS? So it's only the GOP that cares about? That doesn't bother you? Interesting.
Quite frankly,
I would think that just
what difference
that
at this point
anybody.
does it make? What difference at this point does it make?
Okay, where's the boo sound effect?
That was a
That was a use of what difference at this point does it make? Oh my gosh, yes.
That gets gonged now.
No.
I need to see the revised gonged list.
I'm just going crazy now that I have this wide open sound effects budget. We've just, guys, just an announcement about the show to our listeners. We have decided that we agree with deficit spending on our use of sound effects. We're going to go crazy with them and use them whenever we find them appropriate. And not just me, everyone involved in the show is free to use the Google Effects sound effects whenever they want.
Except the people in the chat room.
Because we are empowering. And there are sound effects available in the chat room. I just have them turned off because I'm on a power trip and I want to empower us, but not them. Not them.
Perfect.
They're like the little people that we meet spontaneously at our Chipotle when we're there for lunch.
Well, I've got to say too that I hope people pay for the things that were done in Benghazi. I hope people pay for all the various scandals, the IRS targeting, all of those other things. And I know that there are a lot of people who want Congress to act on those things now, or in 2017 with a Republican president involved, and some people who can't wait that long. I get it. But if I realize that some of those things haven't been able to move people, as dire as they are, the media and the Democrats and the left have sort of marginalized those as issues, I think we can look to other things and concentrate on those and steal their voters, the middle voters, right out from under them. And one of the things that I think we can do that with is an article that was published on National Review. This is called Wisconsin's Shame. I thought it was a home invasion. And David French wrote this. And the story is phenomenal. And essentially, this is Wisconsin politics, internal politics, gone crazy. It goes back to 2009. There was a case about a Purple Heart chapter that there was some embezzlement of funds, $11,000 worth of funds, and the the district attorney in Milwaukee didn't act on it, but instead formed what was called a John Doe investigation. I had never heard of this. Or at least if I had, I wasn't aware that that's what this was. But apparently, during a John Doe investigation, they can break into your house, they can search your home, ask you questions, interview your children, confiscate things. I think reporters might have had something similar done to them, but not under John Doe. Take all your stuff, and then you're not allowed to talk about it. They've placed a gag order on the case, so you cannot explain to your neighbors why the police were knocking down your door. You can't talk to your boss about why all the material on your computer you can't access because the government took it. All of that stuff, it puts a clamp down of complete silence. You can't talk to anyone about it. And what happens is people are then, their lives are ruined, at least for a time. They're unable to fight back. They're unable to talk about it to anyone that could help them. And eventually what happened is they went after Club for Growth in Wisconsin, and Club for Growth sued. And this was interesting. All this, by the way, was done in the service of defeating Scott Walker. That the people that they started going after were people who had helped or worked on or had been involved in some tangential way even in the Walker victories, in his multiple victories here, recall efforts or whatever. And it goes back to why people are hesitant to donate or get involved in politics when these are the tactics that are being used. So the disposition of the case right now is that there are lawsuits around federal and state, I believe, trying to deal with this. But some people that were afraid to talk actually spoke anonymously and told what had been happening. And light is beginning to be shined on this case. But the story itself is so frightening and so unbelievable. And it is no wonder that these tactics are used to shut people down and to keep them from getting involved in politics on the conservative side.
It seems that the left can only win by lying and intimidating and bullying.
I seem to remember these tactics being used a few times in my history class when I studied it. I think there's a few governments out there that have randomly broken into houses and arrested people because they disagreed with those in power. It's never ended up well before. Right now, we're not nearly as extreme as they were.
Well, it ends up really well if you're in the business of manufacturing body bags.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't, it's not as bad yet. The Nazis went in, broke the doors down, took the Jews off to concentration camps. Right now, they broke the doors down, stole their stuff, scared them to shut up. We're not nearly as bad as it was then. A lot of people were disappeared to gulags under Soviet rule for disagreeing or daring to speak up. We're not there yet, but if everyone doesn't come out against this, if these people aren't punished, if they get off and Democrats learn that this is an acceptable tactic, it's going to continue to get worse. Hopefully we never get that bad.
Notice how few people have been talking about this across our political spectrum. People don't talk about it because the folks involved are ordered not to talk about it, and therefore they can't get the word out about what's going on. And that's heinous. That is seriously heinous.
And in this day of being able to anonymously tweet and that kind of thing, we are deluded into thinking that this can't happen. And it can't happen in America where everybody's got cameras all the time. But this does happen, and it is happening, and it has happened. That your neighbor across the street all of a sudden has a SWAT team at the door, and you never find out why. And you ask your neighbor what happened, and he says, I can't tell you. And he looks scared, and then eventually he's going to lose his job, and he has to move out, and you never know what happened. And that happens still today. And it's amazing to me that we're just now beginning to find this out. And we need to all be a little bit braver. I see movies, I see shows about during the Revolution times and during the Civil War and during World War II, and that we're headed towards another crisis of that scale. And you see in there people took such major risks. In fact, I was watching Wolf Hall the other night, and it was during the days of King Henry VIII, and Tyndale's Bible had been released, and the Catholic Church was very opposed to the parishioners reading the Bible in English. And you just see one scene where a gentleman stands up and he reads from the Bible out loud and in English. And to realize that guy, and you can kind of see his face before he stands up, and he's thinking, am I really going to do this? And he makes the decision, yes, I have to. And he stood up and he read a few sentences out loud in English to everybody else in the room from the Bible, making such a political statement. And he ended up in prison, and he was burned at the stake for that. And that's a kind of a personal courage that so many people have, and so many people outside of America have that, and are putting themselves on the line for their beliefs. And we're at a point where we've got people who don't want to forego their morning coffee and are happy to sponsor Starbucks, an organization that works against their means, against their ends, because they don't want to make the personal sacrifice of buying coffee at Dunkin' Donuts instead. There's a certain depth of commitment that we haven't quite achieved, comparable to our ancestors.
I know that it's a little bit off topic, but I just you reminded me that was something that happened, and I think it makes sense here. You were talking about people who don't really have the courage to stand up for the First Amendment, for free speech in general. Gary Trudeau, I don't know if anybody heard about it, but Gary Trudeau justified in a way, before he recanted and all sorts of stuff, but not really, the attacks on Charlie Hebdo, because Charlie Hebdo was punching down instead of punching up. That it just ridiculous. This is somebody who.
Wait, what? All I heard was I saw his name thrown out a couple times of people criticizing him, and I heard it was something with Charlie Hebdo. Go back up. Tell me in detail what he was talking about.
I'm not going to go into it too much, but he was rationalizing the situation with Charlie Hebdo, and said that it was kind of their own fault. It was victim blaming, because instead of punching up, instead of Charlie Hebdo taking on a larger foe, they were instead picking on the little guy. Is essentially what he was saying. He of Doonesbury fame.
The little guy being everyone who believes in God. Because Charlie Hebdo picked on every religion.
No, the little guy meaning radical Islam.
So he wanted them to pick on
somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling, but hey.
But they deserved it. Because
he recanted. He said that no, they didn't deserve it. It was very. It was really milquetoast. It was bad.
And only got raked over the coals.
Yeah, and I don't. But that's the thing, is that, and it goes back to this whole scandal thing and the Ace article, and the same thing with what's going on in Wisconsin. With Wisconsin, this isn't being talked about. This isn't big news in national media. What's going on with these ridiculously scary John Doe investigations? Because it's a liberal thing that's going on here, so it's protected. Right. It's a official scandal. It is, it has the seal of approval that this is something that it is A-OK to investigate into, and please go at it and find, every detail about these guys, because these are really, really, truly bad guys. They're the worst of the worst because they're connected to conservatives, so it's okay. when it comes to Gary Trudeau and him saying something, oh, you know what, it's nothing. It's conservatives making a big fuss over nothing.
Well, and
Very,
it's similar to what we saw. We all remember Gibson Guitar getting investigated and getting the deep exam for breaking laws that weren't laws that they didn't break. And what was interesting was the recent article about how, oh gosh, it must have been just a regular law enforcement kind of thing. It wasn't crazy EPA stuff. It was just standard law, and anybody who's trying to defend Gibson, you must hate the planet. Well, the facts are that Gibson Guitar has a direct competitor who uses similar types of natural wood, but they donate to Democrat causes, and they never got the investigation, and they never got shut down. Gibson Guitar got investigated, and they had to settle out of court, and they paid a fine, which becomes a cost of doing business as a Republican, or an extra cost of doing business as a conservative, and that's not justice.
Not even that. As a non-Democrat.
Well, true. I don't donating to conservative political causes. They were just not donating to Democrats. I mean, this kind of corruption and it used to be that corruption was just trading favors for money, and it was smoke-filled room and all of that kind of thing. And now the corruption comes with a police force, a SWAT team, and armed goons showing up at your door. The militarization of every federal department and the over-militarization of the state and county level police forces, and our corrupt elected officials using them for their own goods, makes this it's really scary, the police state that we're involved in. And oh my God, I feel like I'm an anarchist at this point. But I'm not. Totally not.
Don't go full anarchist.
No.
Never go full anarchist. No. And this, bringing up the overreach, the overstepping. I shockingly enough, I actually wrote an article today, and it is sort of it fits in with this theme.
Where's the applause? Where's the applause?
Oh, hold on. I'm clicking. Why is it not working?
I'm waiting. I'm waiting to bask in the.
Come on! I'm clicking on the clapping hands. It's not working.
Over budget.
I'm holding the lights close. I'm waiting for it. No clapping for me. Anyway, so I wrote a piece on Free Radical Network called "Weaponizing Children," and I pose a hypothetical question about a kid who goes to school. There's a discussion about guns and gun safety happening, and he takes a very proactive stance on guns. Guns are a good thing, and through this discussion, he maybe says something possibly about his mom owns a gun or unregistered gun, and suddenly he gets taken aside, and he gets accosted by the police. They ask him all sorts of questions. His parents aren't called. His mom's not called. It goes directly to the cops, from the teachers to the cops to Child Protective Services, and then his mom's house gets raided. They get a warrant. They knock on her door, go in, search for that unregistered weapon, and they find it. And she's in jail, and he's in CPS, and this is a horrible thing. And how would you feel if that was something that actually happened? That didn't happen. That, thankfully, as bad as gun laws are, it's not something I think is likely to happen. And just the way that schools run crazy away from guns, there's a very low chance that there's ever going to be a gun safety discussion at a school. It's just like it's not going to happen that these sort of things are going to be brought up in a way where a kid would be able to respond with a pro-gun stance.
Well, yeah, because everybody knows that guns are bad, so you don't even have to talk about it. There's no discussion needed.
Exactly. But what people don't know that is bad is that drugs are bad. Um, and that was the next thing I pose is, would you feel any different about that scenario if, instead of it being a unregistered weapon that causes this terrible situation where the mom gets thrown in jail and the child gets put into CPS, um, what if it was about pot? What if it was about a drug class, or one of those things that they do where they have a discussion about drugs and drugs are bad and all that fun stuff, drug awareness class, and maybe the kid's mom has a condition like Crohn's disease, where one of the treatments is hemp oil, or I'm sorry, cannabis oil and pot, something that happens, and he has a different stance on pot than the teachers or whoever is running this thing, and he gets taken aside for that, and then his mom's house gets searched for pot because the kid has a positive stance on pot. Is that something that you would be just as up in arms over, if you as you would be over a unregistered weapon somehow causing a problem? And I hope that you would be, because it's absolutely scary that this is something that could happen, and it actually did happen. It's something that did occur in Kansas, with Shauna Banda, I believe is her name. It's Shona Banda, Banda. She is in jail. She was sent. She might be out on bail. I'm not quite sure what the situation is right now, but she was sent to jail because her son was talking about was defending her stance on pot in one of these classes, and that exactly what I said happened. He got pulled away because the teachers heard what he was saying, got pulled away, got interrogated by police, and the next thing that anybody hears, there's no communication to the parents at all. The police knock on his mom's door. They come back with a warrant that some judge apparently decided that something that an 11-year-old said is enough to get a warrant to search this woman's house. They search her house and they find a minuscule amount of pot and a minuscule amount of cannabis oil, which is consistent with somebody who's using it to treat their Crohn's disease, which she has. And he's still she's lost custody of her child. I mean, he's out of her custody now because of this. This is insane, over something that an 11-year-old said.
And there are 18-year-olds who have that much pot, and they are told to keep on driving. That's not an amount of pot that usually gets anyone even a ticket or arrested or anything. And she's in jail and lost her kid, all on the basis of what a kid said, and the school went crazy. I mean, the whole thing is insane, absolutely insane.
This is what it made me think of when JD shared the story with me. It made me think of the exam, not the exam, the survey questions that they're attempting to push down into the schools to get data mining on children, and some of the things I've heard them asked about. Now, I haven't seen one of those forms. We've been looking for it, for one of those forms all day, to be able to include it in the piece. But it is the greater issue is not pot, and the fact that JD contrasted that with guns was a good start to, okay, this is the same scenario, different contraband, how do you feel about it? Because the issue was not the contraband. The issue was the weaponization of the children, the attempt to mine their lives for data that they could intervene on and bring the police into, that they could exert control over the family in this way. This is the same thing, and he makes this point that Communist China, Soviet Russia, those kind of places do. They take the children and they become snitches on the parents. Nazi Germany, this is a thing. This is a repressive control tactic that has been done. And I hope that what people take away from this piece is not what the contraband was, but rather the fact that the school intervened, used the statements of the child against the parents with the cooperation of the police in order to advance their agenda and their control over the family and ruin this family's lives.
And instead of even if the teacher wanted to freak out because the child said something, because teachers take themselves very seriously as acting, in loco parentis while the kid is at school, and wanting to be able to identify when children are in at-risk situations and all of that kind of thing. So I appreciate teachers being on the ball and looking out for and trying to kind of read into what children are saying. Even if the teacher hears the kid defending pot and thinking, oh, okay, maybe this is a kid of a drug addict, I better find out if the kid is actually getting daily baths and clean clothes and being cared for. What really bugs me is in so many of these stories about children at school, immediately the police are involved. We immediately escalate to a point where it has to be documented by the law. And if you involve the police, they are very motivated to make it worth their time by documenting it. And then you're going to involve CPS, and CPS needs to make it worth their time by creating a case. And if they can consider it one of their cases where they did save the child by removing the parent, then they're going to do that. You have to understand the motivations behind all of these governmental agencies. And once the teacher escalates beyond just talking to Johnny and then having Johnny's mom come in for a parent-teacher conference, instead of doing that, and instead of falling back on the interpersonal communication and a parent helping, or a teacher seeing herself as a helpmate to the family, the teacher is seeing herself as being opposition to the family and the child. The teacher sees herself aligned with the government and the law enforcement agencies, much more so than she sees herself aligned with the child and the family. And she sees herself oppositional to the child and the family. And that kind of thinking is what I'm seeing so much more in any of the government agencies that run across our that deal with our children at all. They see themselves as opposed to the child and the family unit. And they're involving and escalating these situations so much that we end up with this kind of crap. Yeah, somebody looks out their window and they see children walking down the street. And if they're concerned about these children, instead of watching them to make sure that they're playing safely in the park or watching them to make sure they make it home, they call the cops and have the cops then grab the children and detain the children and then arrest the parents for being free-range parents. We now have an adjective to describe these parents that ignore their children. I mean, no, you don't call the cops. You watch the children walk down the street, or you escort them home, and you meet your neighbors. Be a community person.
The thing that really is mind-boggling about this to me is the fact that it's not even the fact that they listened to the 11-year-old kid and did something, acted on it. It's the fact that what they did it over. I could understand if this kid was saying stuff about his mom getting beaten by his dad, or that there were some strange people speaking a foreign language, talking about bombs and stuff. If there was an indication that the kid was talking about a terrorist attack or talking about some serious domestic abuse, some real, like, physical, somebody is being abused type situation, I can understand that. But even then, I think that there's a proper channel to go through. But instead, the way that they define danger, it's not the threshold that they have there. It's not something that a rational person can say, oh, hey, this could be a bad deal, this could be a bad thing. It's so minuscule. What is the, if your mom occasionally smokes a joint, I don't really think that's cause for calling CPS. I'm pretty sure that that's not the case. If your mom has a positive stance on marijuana, I'm pretty sure that's not a reason to take a kid away from a mother. I'm pretty sure that that's not how things should go. But the way that the teachers, the way that the school, whatever, have defined danger, to this low threshold, I mean, it creates this scenario.
And let's loop this back to culture. If this child had been arguing in favor of legalized marijuana or whatever this 11-year-old was arguing in favor of, and they asked him, Johnny, where did you get this idea? And he said, well, I got it from Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. Would they have said, oh, okay? You know, if he had said that he got the idea that dope was okay because his favorite rapper, or because he's a fan of Willie Nelson, or he read about Colorado, or if it had been some cultural reason that he thought pot was okay, would they have been, oh, okay, cool, carry on, bro?
Honestly, we don't even know. We don't know what he said to the cops. We don't know
Right.
what happened that initiated this situation. But I'm pretty sure that it wasn't, oh, my mom is selling bags of weed by the kilo. I don't think that the kid was saying that his mom was Walter White. I'm pretty
Right?
sure that's not what was going on here. Um, it's insane. Another thing that I touched on in the piece, and something that it sort of fits in with this trend. And Fishy talked about the way that Common Core and Race to the Top and the data systems, the longitudinal data systems that they have going on, where they're collecting all sorts of stuff. We aren't really so sure on the details, but there are links in the article. Something else that this reminded me of was the fact that in Puerto Rico there was a bill that was running around in their legislature that wanted to define having an obese child. If you have an obese child, they wanted to define that as child abuse. Going back to the abuse thing,
Oh, and
they
I
wanted
think
to
the
define
UK
that as
is doing
child
some stuff
abuse.
like that too. And their justification is the NHS and the government has to pay the cost and stuff like that. But yeah, it's.
I mean, I don't know.
Are you
Maybe
kidding me?
it's just me, but I kind of think that having a kid who's malnourished and starving, that might be that's something that you want to look into. Somebody who is not starving, clearly not starving, I don't think that fits into the definition of child abuse. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here. As a fat kid, but
Well, it's like it is the government is, as mentioned in chat, schools are increasingly being used as a means to see inside the families, and
yeah.
it is a larger part of the progressive deal where they want to have the government replace the family in your life. We've already destroyed the whole father mother you need to have two parents thing. That is absolutely gone. And now the government it's way easy for the government to say, you know what, your single parent is too busy to pay any attention to you, so you need to just do what we say.
And now you being obese is them actually neglecting you, so
Mm-hmm.
you need to report them. And think
Mm-hmm.
about what other. I mean, this is so disgusting and so scary to me. I mean, we just went through what just happened in Indiana with RIFRA. Can you imagine if that was something that happened? Can you imagine if a kid said something like it said something about maybe homosexual marriage is not a good thing?
Right.
What might happen there in the future if some kid has that kind of an unpopular opinion brought up?
And that is what I want everyone taking away from this, is that today it's marijuana, which you may or may not agree with, but it will be your guns. It will be your kids' diet. It will be your political stances on conservative stances you might take, or counter left cultural stances. That is absolutely where this is going. And if you don't stand against the use of this kind of information over medicinal pot in this kid's family, if you can't align with that cause, just wait, because this is going to happen to conservatives from the school system trying to get at your kids through that information gathering process whatever it might be. And if they are going to continue to say all these things, and they've done it over and over, all these things are dangerous, and they keep coming up with new things to where your kids can't play on the playgrounds unattended, to where they can't walk home from school unattended. All that is following in the footsteps of this one issue on medicinal pot that this family had. Everything is going to be handled the same way. And so I want every one of them to go back to that and look at that case again, regardless of their stance on legalization of marijuana for any reason. They need to be supporting the family and standing against the government abuse of the children and turning them into informants and snitches and weaponizing children against their parents.
Darn it! I was hoping that Ryan was going to jump in there and say what he said, say what he wrote in the chat, I should say. And that's basically, first they came for the weed. It's a situation here, and I don't want to be fear-mongering, and I don't think that we are. But this is a serious thing.
Everything is connected, and you start to add the stories together, and you see the things that are happening in Kansas and the things that are happening in Arizona and Michigan and Wisconsin, and thank God for social media and the internet and our ability to connect and talk to each other about these things. Otherwise, people in Texas wouldn't know that what was going on in Kansas, and we wouldn't know to be on our guard. And now we can share these fears and fight together against it. Go.
I really don't think we're fear-mongering. If you look at the history of the left, Hillary Clinton says she's a progressive like the early 20th century progressives. Their goal was to, over a long period of time, as Woodrow Wilson said, make the children as unlike their parents as possible. It was to change the...
tip to you is,
whoa.
Your smile says a lot about you.
I'm hearing something talk, and I have no idea what it is. All right. I think I found the tab. I have no idea where that ad came from. But, Woodrow Wilson said we want to make the kids as unlike their parents as possible. They had a 100-year plan to turn the country. They realized that the communist revolution didn't work, so we need to do it slower. We need to move people bit by bit. We need to get the schools. We need to get the media. We need to get entertainment. And slowly you look at each issue, and they're pushing it. I remember probably 15 years ago now, I think the first lesbian kiss ever on TV. Now, every show out there has a token gay or lesbian person. It can be, it's a kid's cartoon that has nothing to do with sexuality, and there's this person that walks on and says, "Hi, I'm gay," and then walks off the screen, and that's their only part in the show. But now look where we are in gay marriage. Look how far the needle has swung with people against gay marriage versus for it in the past 5 to 10 years. Now, almost everyone is okay with gay marriage. What was it, 10 years ago, there was not one state in the union, and every state had voted it down multiple times. That's what they do, is they go piece by piece, bit by bit, and it gets worse and worse and worse until at the end, as Leslie said, nudge, nudge, nudge. You push people to where you want to be slowly, bit by bit, and eventually we'll be there. They worship these people, Stalin, Hitler, Margaret Sanger. All of those people are their heroes, and that's what they're doing. They're eventually going to get there. It might not be in the next 5 years, might not be in the next 10, but maybe it will. You look at all the official academic polls of the top presidents of all time. 2 of the top 5 are always 2 that imprisoned American citizens for their race or because they disagreed with them. Those are the people they worship. Do you think they really wouldn't do that again if they had the chance? I think they would if they knew they could get away with it.
Because it's in the service of the greater good. That's what they tell themselves.
Yep.
Well, that's a bummer. Felicia, can you cheer us up for a minute before we close out? Because, oh my God, I want to kill myself. Not literally.
Yeah, please don't, because I don't know where the the sound effects buttons are. So, I need you here.
I know my purpose here.
Yes, I will give you something to do. Yeah. No, this week in Hillary news, I think that some of the fun stuff at the end of the show we have to bring up is Hillary. Now she's gone in Scooby to New Hampshire, and I gotta say, props to Independent Journal Review for doing the series that they have done of young people, allowing young people to do a guest post when Hillary comes to town. They take a lot of pictures. They do a really quick picture-laden post about how close they get to Hillary and whether they get to go in and ask questions and talk to her, or whether they're just relegated to standing outside. And they've been so funny, so cute. These young people, young college student age people, going around and trying to get into Hillary events. It's a hilarious series, almost as fun as the one where they take presidential candidates and put them into Sims games or Oregon Trail. I mean, that's been hugely fun. But Hillary is not having an easy time on the campaign trail with the gay marriage issue, by the way. She's getting pushback on changing her position or something. Last year she said, "For me, marriage has always been a matter best left to the states." And that's what she told NPR. But last month...
And that was just last year?
That was just last year. And then
Okay, that was after Obama had evolved, right?
yes.
Okay, so she was contrasting herself with Obama.
Right, and so last week it becomes one of her state spokespeople says, Hillary Clinton supports marriage equality and hopes the Supreme Court will come down on the side of same-sex couples being guaranteed that constitutional right. So...
Okay, it's now a right. It's a constitutional right.
Right. So it's a flip-flop. And when they asked about her changing positions, one of her spokespeople said, she's had no change of heart. She was asked a different question. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We can trust her, man. We can totally trust her. She's... Wow. The woman's been in the public eye in politics for how many years, and we still have really no idea what she's about. She's a committed leftist. She really is. She's not a centrist. She's much further left than her husband, Bill. And she would be easily as progressive left as Obama has been, only much less nice about it, because she's not a nice person. Actually, I don't think Obama's a nice person either, but...
Well, I have to say this, and then I'm really done with Hillary. I worked this week on rewriting some lyrics to a familiar song that hopefully our friends at the Army you have will do something with and record it, and if they do, we'll be able to share it here. But yeah, so I'm all in for all the fun Hillary news, and I think we're probably going to have to start a Twitter. I know Prue has already started a Facebook page on the Hillary stuff, just to poke fun at her. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
Because we have to make fun of her. She's easily mockable, and she's so unapproachable. What's been hilarious about those? There have been the two stories of people trying to get in and see her. There was the one where there was that ended up with the vine of the reporters chasing the Scooby van, and that was in Iowa, I guess it was. And then there's this one today in New Hampshire. What's amazing is how small the crowds are. And, when Obama was doing this, even early in his campaign, there were huge crowds. The woman is not drawing crowds at all.
Well, and they told this girl it was invite only, and that's why she couldn't get in, because it was a small venue. And then the picture is a bunch of, a small crowd of people sitting around the table. With plenty of room.
Even when Obama had those invite-only inside things, there was a massive crowd outside, massive numbers of reporters and massive numbers of people wanting just to see him drive up and to wave at him and holler, and he would walk in through the red carpet rope line kind of thing, because showmanship and popularity and all of that kind of stuff. And Hillary just is not generating the excitement. which I think is hilarious.
It's going to count against her. Obama depended on that to get people motivated enough to go out and work for his campaign.
Yeah. Who's going to want to go work for her? I mean, why would you? And, you know, certainly right now, since it's the primary and she doesn't have any competition, there's no need.
Oh my gosh. What if Hillary is the Democrats' John McCain 2008? We all sucked it up. We all went to the polls, but we didn't like it. We weren't very happy about it.
Right.
What if that's her?
That is her.
There's no. We should end the show right here because there is no happier thought. That's it. I mean.
That's true.
Tinkerbell is completely ready to get us out of here, flying and all that stuff. We are filled up on happy thoughts with that one.
Happy thoughts, and thank you everybody for hanging out with us.
Applause!
Well, if I can make it work, hold on. No, I'm clicking and it's not happening. Thanks, Google. Applause. Yeah, that was me applauding. Sorry, probably doesn't come through the microphone very well. I need to hire a better Foley artist because this is simply not working for me. Probably when I hang up the call, the applause is going to start working. But I want to thank everybody who was chatting with us live on the refineryshow.com, and I want to thank everybody who's watching on YouTube, and I want to thank everybody who's going to be listening to us later on in the week at Vigilant Liberty Radio or on Spreaker or TuneIn or iTunes or any of the various podcast feeds that we've got, or YouTube. And stay tuned for all of the short clips that JD and Felicia will put together throughout the week. And we will see everybody next Tuesday, April 28th at 8:45 Central. Other time zones in other places, other times in other time zones that don't matter. And we will next week have an update on the Bluebell ice cream situation because we're following it very closely.
Yes, I'm going to have to get my veil back on.
Yeah. Pray for Bluebell, everyone. Pray for
Bluebell Watch 2015.
Exactly.
It needs its own theme music, though. We've got to come up with that.
Oh God, that's way beyond the budget. We need to vote to lift the debt ceiling on this show. Anyway, thank you guys. See you next week. Bye.